Breakthrough Studios, the AusBiz COB is the key stuff you need to know about the day in business and finance.
Hello, welcome to the COB this Wednesday afternoon. I'm Juliette Sarli. Great to have your company as we see a day of losses despite the, Taco Tuesday trade that we saw in the US with President Trump announcing a ceasefire extension at the 11th hour. But we have been weighed down by the banks, by healthcare today. The CBO 200 finishing the session down by around 1% as we round out the day's trade. And the S&P ASX 200 is lower by about 98 points or 1% to 8,851 as we head into the match off. Now, a lot of this is due to the fact that we had this unhealthy slump coming through from the healthcare sector, which is down by something like 6%. This is all due to Cochlear having its biggest slump in around 10 years, about $4 billion wiped from its market cap today. This is after the hearing implant group cut its 2025-26 underlying net profit guidance to be between $290 to $330 million, citing weaker developed market demand, Middle East tensions and softer US conditions. It's really dragged on the entire healthcare space, and we'll talk with Kai Chen from MPC Markets about that coming up. We did though, just before we open, have that announcement by President Trump, US President Trump, indefinitely extending the ceasefire with Iran. Trump saying in a Truth Social post that Pakistan, which is mediating these talks, asked the US to hold off on fresh strikes. And he says that the US is extending that ceasefire until Iran submits a new proposal and discussions are concluded one way or another. But in another post, he did say that without the blockade, there can never be a deal with Iran unless we blow up the rest of their country, including their leaders. Now, elsewhere on our market, we did see quite a bit of weakness coming through from the financial stocks. Let's have a look at where those banking stocks have finished the day's trade, kicking it off with a look at ANZ down by more than 2%. CommBank there down by 2.3% to $175.40. I mentioned the healthcare sector really dragged lower by Cochlear today. Let's have a look. So as we said, Cochlear was down by about 40%, CSL off by about 6%, ResMed down by around 2.3%. And having a look at energy as well as we continue to monitor the, non-development in the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, but Santos, they're pretty flat. Karoon Energy up by 1.5%. Now, there was quite a lot of quarterly updates. So we had Cochlear, of course, pointing to these softer trading conditions, but also BHP today. It came through with a quarterly iron ore beat. Jefferies, though, staying cautious on its copper outlook. BHP shares just a little bit higher today. I had a great conversation with Angus Geddes from Fat Profits earlier. He thinks that a lot of these miners, including BHP, can continue to hit records, particularly amidst the demand for copper. Ampol saw its, quadrupled its first quarter margins from its Lytton refinery in Queensland due to the Middle East conflict, driving up global refiner margins in March, shares up by almost 4%. But heading the other way, the Bank of Queensland sinking the most in 6 years on weak half-yearly profit. And Treasury Wine Estate was the top performer on the market, jumping 17% after flagging a major restructure that will see Penfolds no longer operate as a standalone division. Well, let's welcome to the COB Kai Chen from MPC Markets. Hi, Kai.
Hey.
So the Taco Tuesday trade didn't really eventuate for us because of the fact that healthcare was so heavily sold off.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think, obviously going back to the Taco Tuesday, it's kind of becoming a standard thing at the moment. Before coming to the market open, we were reading, I was like, oh my God, the market's, really having a risk-off moment here. And then, again, extending that ceasefire a bit longer just so they can hold out. But it's really hard to keep up, as we were talking about before. It's kind of, there's a lot of back and forth. I think the Iranian camp could be still indecisive in terms of what to go with. But I think Trump in the US basically wants out in some way, shape or form from this conflict. And I think that's what really the market's pricing is going, he's trying to look for a way out, and hopefully we get there. In terms of our market, you're absolutely right. Cochlear, wow, 40%. I think that's one of the biggest moves, we've seen for a long, long time. And it's not without reason. Basically, a lot lower in terms of demand. There's a lot of structural shifts in the healthcare sector that's causing these issues. But again, with these stocks, when they fall out of favour, they just stay down there for a long time, and you have overreactions because over the last 2 years, Cochlear actually has done incredibly well. So. I wouldn't be rushing in to buy at the moment. It's a bit scary. And again, with the ASX earnings cycle, it's about every half a year that you receive new news that come out to really take over from the previous story. So, I think it's at an extreme discount, but it's going to not look pretty for a while.
Yeah, I spoke out of step earlier. I said that it had its biggest fall in 10 years. It's actually at a 10-year low. I mean, it's probably its biggest fall on record. 40% is pretty punchy, but as you say, maybe not time to dip in just yet. Would you be having a nibble at wine stocks or treasury wine in particular? I mean, that's extraordinary, that move.
That's really interesting because, again, treasury wine over the last year and a half, 2 years have not had a great time, falling from $10 to basically down to the high threes. And the reason why it's structural, basically, the US segment of the business wasn't doing really well, so they were having a lot of logistical issues. Their brand over there wasn't as good as they thought it would be. And of course, a little bit weaker demand from China as well in terms of spending and the economy over there. So I think the market, it is at a very heavy discount. It's basically trading below the tangible assets. And I think this is good news to the market today. Basically, they're restructuring it, Penfold not being a standalone brand or its own division, and then really actually breaking the different segments in geographical space, so they have a bit more clarity in terms of where to operationally improve. So I think it's good news for the market, for treasury wines, and it's still cheap.
Yeah. Good news for some of those consumer discretionary stocks maybe. What about when it comes to the miners? BHP, as I mentioned, looking good. A lot of sort of further potential upside to some of these mining players that could hit further records maybe.
Yeah, BHP has been incredibly strong. A lot, of course, precious metals has had a really, really strong run, as well as actually the lithium space has been coming up quite a bit recently as well with all the EV players and going to renewables. I think mining is still, in a very strong space. So I think the run is likely to continue.
Let's get back to the pressure though in the Middle East, because there are some people saying that maybe we're underestimating the pivot here from military escalation to economic pressure on Iran, and that this could be a more damaging phase. How do we sort of play that if it drags out for months and months?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. I think that's exactly what the blockade is there for. It's basically stopped the Iranian ships from going out and still producing revenue. Yet to be seen how it works. I think, does it cause an escalation from the Iranian side? I think, if it gets bad enough, obviously they will. But hopefully, I think the market is expecting Trump to play it out in some way where this creates a bit of leverage, gives him a bit of way to de-escalate. But we shall see. It's a very quick evolving situation.
Yeah, and at the same time, we're getting a lot of updates from companies. Today we had Ampol, one of the top ones I can think of, Centre Group. I'm just seeing the European biggest airline, Lufthansa, is going to scrub 20,000 summer flights to save on fuel costs. That's going to put a lot of people's European summer holidays out of whack. Are we expecting to get more of these type of updates, do you think?
Absolutely. I think the Strait is closed at the moment, so I'm a little bit surprised in terms of how the oil price has reacted. It went down to about $80 in the last week when there was talks of de-escalation. But, really that core problem still exists, that the Strait is still blocked. So it will take much longer to reopen than I think most people think, and that's likely to flow through to the travel industry for sure.
And tonight we've got a few US earnings, and one of them I note is Geopolitics, which your colleague Jonathan told me earlier on the trade is a stock that he likes as sort of a war winner. What else are you looking out for some of the US earnings season?
So we got Lam Research as well reporting tonight. So they're actually one of the biggest AI infrastructure. They produce semiconductors and they're a fab in the US. So, they've actually done incredibly well, and that's one we're watching tonight to see how they perform. They've beaten basically all their estimates for the last 2 years. So we're expecting something good to come out, so that's one we're watching at the moment.
All right, another busy night and day ahead for market watchers. Kai, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Kai Chen from MPC Markets. The stock of the day was BHP, and we heard from our experts, David Franklin from Argonaut and Michael Gable from Fairmont Equities.
Balance sheet strong, and Mike Henry, who's been the CEO for some time, has announced he's stepping down with the new MD, Brandon Craig, stepping in. So I think it's a good time for BHP. It looks like their disagreement with China over the pricing of iron ore has been resolved, and I think it's in really good shape. We've got it as a buy.
BHP will be the first stock that money will flow into, of course. It's very liquid. It's the large blue cap, and we see that cycle play out all the time in terms of it's the big caps that move first, and then you've got the mid caps and then the small caps. So quite easily BHP is the place you want to be. That's where the money will flow, I think, over the next several months to a couple of years. So any dip in BHP is an opportunity, and I think it can go a lot higher from here.
You've worked hard for your money all your life. Now your money needs to work hard for you. Whether you're building, transferring or drawing down, the right information makes all the difference. At Ausbiz Retire, you'll find the latest news and insights from trusted experts all in one place. Ausbiz Retire is powered by RAN, retirement income done differently.
All right, well, it was a down day, but let's have a look at some of the leaders. And I gather Treasury Wine Estates is at the top of that board on that Penfolds news, up by some 17%. Iluka Resources also looking good. Ampol has been, I guess, if you want to call it that, a winner somewhat from the fuel crisis caused by the war. Vault Minerals also had an update today, and New Hope up by 3.4%. The laggards today included Cochlear, of course, down by 39%, now at a 10-year low, $4 billion wiped from its market cap today. Generation Development, Bank of Queensland on its update, Judo Bank and Reliance Worldwide as well. If we have a look at the small end of town, Invictus Energy had a good session, as did Lake Resources, up 12.5%. Meteoric Resources having a meteoric rise as well, but the laggards in the small end of town included Terracom down 9% and some other resources companies there as well. We mentioned first quarter earnings in the US tonight, including Tesla, Boeing, GE Vernova, which Jonathan Takadina has hit on his radar as a winner, if you can call it that, from what we're seeing in the Middle East. Philip Morris, IBM as well, and Kai mentioning that Lam Research is one on their radar as they look to the AI disruption. Tomorrow, locally, we will get the flash services and manufacturing PMIs updated. Also quarterly updates from Drone Shield, Fortescue, PLS and Santos. And Woodside will hold its AGM with, of course, its new CEO. Let's have a look at where the local market has finished the day's trade, and that Taco Tuesday turnaround in late or after hours on the US failing to lift our market, which has closed lower by 1%, and the S&P ASX 200 has closed down 106 points or 1.2% to 8,843, really dragged lower by that whopper of a loss coming through from Cochlear's share price, and healthcare stocks down 5.4% with financials down by 2%. We'll see what the development of that extended ceasefire means for global markets tonight, and bring you all of that plus what is expected for our market from 9:45 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. See you then.